Hey, it's Darryl Syms, and in this video I want to talk to you about hybrid picking. Now, I've done some videos in the past on this topic, but they were more so aimed at those who might be new to the technique, since they involve pretty basic exercises across the pentatonic scale and involve just one hybrid picking finger, which is often more the case when it comes to hybrid picking. You're only really going to use one finger. However, I've got a new approach and a new idea to share with you today that involves all of the fingers, and we're going to be implementing hybrid picking across arpeggios. Now, I strongly recommend that if you're new to hybrid picking, that perhaps you want to check out my previous videos on hybrid picking, since they're a lot easier than the exercises that I'm going to share with you today. And predominantly throughout this video, we're going to be focusing on the technique aspect of things. However, I will be talking a little bit about theory, and if you find yourself getting a bit lost, then I invite you to check out my website, which is linked in the description below, where you'll find heaps of instructional content to help you get a more thorough understanding of what's going on. As usual, if you would like to download the tabs for all of these exercises, they will be available on my Patreon page, which is also linked in the description below. Now, that's enough chat from me. Let's get on with the exercises. All of the exercises that I'm going to share with you throughout this video are based on one simple idea. So make sure you've got this nailed before attempting any of the full exercises. It's super short. It sounds like this. So it's just a C major 7 arpeggio within one octave, but the technique is very important, and it's important that you get a nice consistent and steady pace. So we're hammering on from the 3rd fret to the 7th fret, that's your major 3rd, and then 5, 4, okay, 5th fret, 4th fret. 2nd finger controls that 5th fret there, you're going to pluck that, and then 3rd finger gets that 4th fret. So that concludes the ascending part, and then the descending starts on the 5th fret here. You're going to pick that note, pull off, and then just up. Okay, so nice and easy. Give that a few tries before we expand on that. Now, the first thing that we're going to try, exercise number 1, is to simply extend that across all of the chords within the C major scale. And that's going to force you to think about what you're doing, as well as open our vocabulary to minor chords and obviously a minor 7 flat 5 chord at the end. So all in all, it would sound like this. We've got the first chord down. Then we've got D minor 7, so you're just going to flatten the 3rd degree and flatten the 7th degree. So we have... The technique remains exactly the same. Then we got E minor 7, F major 7, G7, so we're just got a flat 7 in that one, A minor 7, and then B minor 7 flat 5, so you need to find your flat 5 here, and your flat 3 and your flat 7, so we got, and then you're back to your root. So I want you to try and put all that together, try and get it as steady as possible, play with a metronome if necessary, and once you're comfortable ascending the sequence, you can try to descend and then perhaps even try and create your own order. Now, top tips just before we move on to exercise number 2, to keep the clarity and string control, it's very important that your finger placement is in such a way that you're always muting the string above what you're fingering. So as I play through these arpeggios, no matter what finger I use, I'm always touching the string above to mute that previous note. And secondly, when it comes to hybrid picking, I get a lot of questions on nail length. It's not really something that I tend to think about. I often trim my nails completely and therefore don't use any nails for hybrid picking. However, of preference, I must say, I do prefer the tone when I have a little bit of nail in there. I just feel like a little bit of nail gives it a bit more bite and a bit more snap, which I really love, but I really wouldn't think about it too much, because if you intentionally try to use your nail and you get that string stuck underneath your nail, it can be really painful. If you take a close look at my right hand here, I'm simply just putting my finger beneath the string that I'm playing and I'm just pulling it up slightly as I do this. I'm not digging too far in, and I'm not tapping the string, and you know, just plucking just enough to play the note at an equal volume of the picked notes. So let's move on to exercise number 2, which is simply an extension of exercise number 1. We're going to do exactly the same thing, however, rather than play each arpeggio within a 1 octave span, we're going to extend that across 2 octaves. So if I play the first arpeggio for you, that would sound like this. Okay, so that was just 16th notes there. So again, I'll play that super slow. So it's a very similar style to before, how we use the fingers to ascend the sequence, and then when we descend, just roll up with the pick there, consistent upstrokes, sweeping upwards. And then we're going to apply that same idea, of course, to every one of the arpeggios. So again, I'll just run through them slowly for you to try and pick up. E minor 7. F major 7, G7, A minor 7, B minor 7 flat 5, and then finishing back on the root, of course. So you'll notice that the shapes are very repetitive. A major 7 will always look the same, and a minor 7 will always look the same, as well as a minor 7 flat 5. Until we start adding extended notes, which is where I'm going to go next for exercise number 3. But once again, before we do move on, I encourage that you get very comfortable and good with that, forwards, backwards, every direction that you can possibly imagine. Maybe even try this idea on a different string set, with the root note starting on the top string perhaps. Regardless of how you do this, I just strongly recommend that you just take a moment to really observe what you're doing rather than solely rely on the shapes that I'm giving you. So when I run through this, I'm always aware of the intervals that I'm playing. I can clearly see where the 3, the 5, the 7 and the root notes are, and I'm always mindful of the chord that I'm playing as I pass through the progression so that I don't hit any of the wrong notes or become dependent on the same shapes as I pass through the sequence. So we're going to try now, again, the same thing, but rather than play 7th arpeggios, we're going to play 9th arpeggios. So starting off with a C major 9, it would sound like this. Okay, and again, if we apply that same idea to the entire diatonic scale, we would have the following chords. So we just did C major 9, moving on to D minor 9. So a bit of a stretch there from the 9th degree back up to the 3rd. And notice that we're skipping the root. In place of the root note in the middle, we replace that with the 9th degree. So that was 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7, 9. And then back to the 5 and continue on. 5, flat 7, 9, flat 3, 5. And then the next chord, E minor 7, flat 9. F major 9, G9, A minor 9, and then B minor 7 flat 5 flat 9. I'll play this one slowly for you. And then of course back to your root. Now let me just go ahead and play that whole sequence together to give you an idea of what it might sound like if you were to implement this as a full exercise or practice routine. It would sound like this, starting from the C major 9. notice as I follow through the progression, I'm trying to keep it as steady as I can with no awkward gaps if I can help it. And of course, I'm just repeating the same finger pattern for each arpeggio. I'm just thinking about which notes I'm playing as I go through the progression. So there you have it. That's just about everything that I want to share in this video. I hope you found the exercises interesting and insightful. And if you managed to pull these off and maybe even throw some of these ideas amongst your own playing, I'd love to see. So feel free to share that with me on Instagram and tag me at Darryl Syms. I'd love to see some of you guys pull this off. Until next time, I will see you in the next video.